Van Kaplan here, executive producer of Pittsburgh CLO. Thank you for joining us on Facebook Live for Close-Ups, Spark the Conversation, where you can meet the artists who make our Spark Festival possible here in Pittsburgh. For 75 years, the Pittsburgh CLO has been bringing people together to celebrate musical theater, and we will again soon. All of us at CLO hope that you and your loved ones are safe and managing these difficult times. We look forward to seeing you again at the theater.
Hi, everyone. Hello out there, and welcome to week 2 of Pittsburgh CLO Close-Ups. I'm Olivia O'Connor. I'm the manager of New Work Development at Pittsburgh CLO, and it's Tuesday at 3 p.m., which means we are live for Spark the Conversation. Thank you so much to everyone who joined us last week. It was so exciting to see some familiar faces, some new faces in our comments and questions. And if you are joining us for the first time this week, welcome. This is a 30-minute live stream in which we catch up with alums from our New Musicals initiative. We're going to have a chat. We're going to have a little show and tell. We'll have time for questions from those of you watching live, and we'll wrap up with a fun list of 5. This live stream is also recorded and posted to our website and our YouTube page. So if you are joining us from one of those platforms, hi, and thanks for watching. Today, in just a few moments, I'm so excited to welcome 2 exceptional artists to our program. The writing team of These Girls Have Demons, Meghan Brown and Sarah Taylor Ellis. Meghan is the show's book writer lyricist. Sarah is its composer. And These Girls Have Demons came to Pittsburgh CLO really early in its development process. In December of 2017, as we were reading for our inaugural Spark Festival of New Musicals, Sarah and Meghan sent us a paragraph-long pitch of the show and a single demo of the title song. We were intrigued and asked to read more. 11 days later, they sent us a draft of Act 1 and 5 more demos. A few weeks after that, we committed to doing a reading of the show in Spark, and a few months after that, the very first draft of the show was up in front of an audience. Sarah and Meghan have been back to Pittsburgh twice since then. You're seeing pictures from all of their projects here. They were back for a writer's residency in August of 2018, and then for New Musicals Weekend in 2019 with a radically new draft of the show. And at every step along the way, this draft has taken incredible steps forward, and we're really excited to talk about it today. Meghan and Sarah also have a lot of other things going on in their lives. This winter, Meghan had a workshop production of her play Cowboy Electra with Rogue Artist Ensemble at the Getty Villa, and also the world premiere production of The Tasters at Rivendell Theatre Ensemble in Chicago. Sarah is the head of music at Arts Ed London, and earlier this year, she was the composer and music director on a Theatre for Young Audiences adaptation of Hamlet, which sounds amazing and I'm completely here for. And that show toured London area schools in a production with the National Theatre. We are so excited to chat with them today, and let's welcome them. Hi, Sarah. Hi, Meghan.
Hello.
Hi. So good to see you both. Welcome. Good to see your faces. Yes.
It's been a year.
It's been a year. I know, it's been so long. And we were supposed to be together this month for a university workshop of Demons, which sadly we had to postpone. We'll chat about that a little bit, but I'm excited to see your faces digitally, even if I'm not in person. So as always, I want to start with how are you? How are you doing in this world? And where are you right now?
Sure. I'm in London right now. We moved here actually just over the summer. So I took up my new job at Arts Ed in September. And so it's an interesting time to be so far away from family and so far away from friends in the States. I'm doing okay. I feel like I swing some days between like high anxiety and then, okay, this is the new normal. But I'm doing a lot of crafting. I'm grateful to be safe at home in like a lovely cottage in West London with my cats and my husband and like a garden so we can safely get some sun. I haven't felt super creative lately, but am like trying to rest, relax, and like acclimate to everything.
Yeah. And Meghan, where are you joining us today, and how are you?
Well, I'm in Pasadena. My fiance and I just moved into a house in Pasadena just a few weeks ago. So it was kind of, we ended up moving earlier than we'd been planning. but it's been really wonderful. Kind of similar to Sarah, we have a nice outdoor space. Mm-hmm. There's a little bit more room than where I was before. So it's been kind of a nice place to, you know, if we're going to be staying at home, it's a nice place to stay at home.
Yeah.
There's a lot of peacocks in my neighborhood. That's something that I'm very excited about. So there's escaped parrots from an arboretum in the 60s. So there's these like giant green parrots and like 7 to 9 enormous peacocks that just like stand in the road and prevent the cars from moving. So that's been fun. It's like for a little, you know, my daily neighborhood walk.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I'm fine. I mean, I feel very lucky to be safe and safe and sound and healthy. You know, it's a really stressful and challenging time, I think, for everybody. Mm-hmm. And it's, you know, I think, you know, Sarah describing it as a little bit of a pendulum. You know, there's days where it feels terrifying in a paralyzing way, like when you're kind of looking at the macro. And then there's days where like the micro kind of takes over and you know, make a nice dinner, watch some good TV, and like everything, you know, is fine in the little sphere.
Right.
So yeah, back and forth, like, you know, like everybody.
Yeah. I cannot believe that you moved just a few weeks ago. And I always ask people how many humans and animals in their quarantine, right? Mm-hmm. So you have completely merged households in a matter of weeks.
Yeah, and I mean, we went from, so I've never lived with anyone before, and we went from like, I lived by myself for 9 years, and then now I'm with someone, you know, 24 hours a day, all the time, and luckily it's been real. I mean, this is, you know, he'll watch this later. It's been going great. No, but it's been like really wonderful, and I feel like, you know, it's been like great to have, you know, a little bit of a fresh start during this time. I think that in terms of like energy, that's been a little bit of a buoyant force of like, you know, we have to like move and then there's unpacking. So now we're kind of settling in a little bit for the next step.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's so exciting. And congratulations on your engagement, by the way. And Sarah, you also have a new member of your household as of January, a furry member of your household, correct?
We do. So you can see in the background here, this one we've had for 4 years now. This is El Doctoro, and he is a Persian / domestic long hair that we adopted from Egypt. And we decided he needed a little companion. So Emma Goldman is somewhere upstairs. But we saw her on like a Facebook rescue group. In Qatar, they have a huge cat overpopulation problem, just like they do in Egypt. And she's this gorgeous, exotic short hair. And she just seemed so sweet. And she has one eye and is just the most quirky, charming little creature. So we welcomed her in January. The two cats are learning to get along. I honestly think lockdown's helping them a little bit, and they love having us here all the time. But it's been really like lovely having two cats. It helps liven up the household a lot.
Yeah. And Emma is a social media star on your Facebook page. We'll post after this. I'll post a picture of Emma in the comments so you all can see her watching at home too. She really is a sweetheart. Wonderful. So I do want to keep talking a little bit about the strangeness of the world right now, because I know that both of you have had projects impacted, not just the CLO workshop that we were planning for this month, but other projects impacted by quarantine. And it kind of is reflective of what's happening in the theater industry as a whole. Things are being canceled, postponed. And as I mentioned, you two came into this spring with a lot of forward momentum of projects completed, projects in process, and coming up. So talk to me a little bit about how your schedules and plans have changed over the last month.
You know, my schedule has opened up considerably, Olivia. I will say that. You know, we were so excited to be bringing Demons to more of a college workshop space together. I have a play called What Happened While Hero Was Dead, which is about Hero from Much Ado About Nothing slutting it up while she's presumed dead. And that was going to be, having a reading workshop in Omaha. I had a production at Milwaukee Rep of The Tasters coming up, which is going to be postponed, hopefully postponed. But I will say, and I'm taking out a pilot, so I'm, looking to write film and TV and, just kind of doing these meetings and pitching this show. And that is also another industry that's kind of on a little bit of a pause as everyone's kind of waiting to see what happens. And, Sarah and I talked earlier this week, and something that's been really interesting is I feel like, normally all of that stuff is so high on my priority list. And the idea of losing one project or like one thing falling through would have been so, devastating and disappointing. It mattered so much. And currently with like the climate of what's happening, all over the world, it just doesn't seem to matter in the same way right now. It's disappointing. It's stuff that I obviously would rather be doing than not doing, but it's just not, it's not personal, and it's not the biggest thing that anybody should be, worrying about right now. So I think that in some ways, it's shown like a positive perspective, which is like, look, this stuff that we love is important and it will come back in its time. But, this is not what I need to be upset about right now, or what needs to be a preoccupation of stress.
Yeah. No, that's a great perspective. And it really has it. It reorganizes your priorities in a very powerful way. And I also think it helps that it's shared across so many people and so many industries, so that you can talk about it and also move on from it in some ways. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And Sarah, we were chatting earlier, you've made the switch to teaching online, which I think is something that's probably shared for many of our viewers, whether you are a student or teacher, professor, or have kids who are learning online. So Sarah is a teacher and you have moved to remote teaching. You're on break right now, but you go back on Monday. How has the transition been?
It's been an interesting transition, especially because I teach at a performing arts specialist school, and it is very difficult to teach the performing arts, which is so collaborative and which relies on being in the same room online. So I've had to do, even over break, I know every teacher that has taken a break has been constantly thinking and brainstorming and trying to come up with new ways to keep the collaborative feel of what we'd be doing in a traditional music classroom or a traditional drama or dance classroom, even while we're all sort of remote from each other. So we're experimenting with, virtual choirs and mixing different individual voices coming together in the same track. We're experimenting with, we'll have Zoom, thankfully, when we come back, and we'll be able to do a little bit more live interactivity with the students. I've been trying to set really simple tasks. So like the year 8 students, which is the equivalent of 7th grade, they're about to do a sort of world music study, and they won't have access to instruments that we have access to at school. So, okay, can you find a surface in your house that sounds a little bit like a djembe? And here's how you play some patterns on that. And then here's how you notate that. Compose your own pattern and notate it, and then I'll evaluate it and we'll have a share. But I think it is requiring a lot of the teachers and of the students to be independent learners. I think it's a really good opportunity for students to learn how to be independent learners, and hopefully not too much falls on the parents, because I think that can be incredibly challenging for them trying to work from home at the same time as well. So we're innovating where we can, and I think I'm at a really creative and collaborative school where everybody looks out for each other, and that helps a great deal.
Yeah. That's great. I'm glad that you're adjusting. I'm glad that you have a little bit of time to be semi-off as you recalibrate. Yes. Great. So let's switch gears a little bit and chat about These Girls Have Demons. So as I mentioned, it came to us really early in its writing process. What inspired you to write this show?
I mean, I think our joke is always that it was the title. Like the title came first, and I was like, oh, I think that should be the title of our next show. And it was like, but what does that mean? Like, what happens in a musical called These Girls Have Demons? And both Sarah and I are really attracted to sort of, screamy, feminist, noisy women, and this idea of a dangerous woman, and the way that society kind of, looks at socializing women in a sort of pliant path, in a way that, doesn't always serve them. And so kind of the main focus of These Girls Have Demons, it's a kind of coming of age story for 4 teenage girls who are possessed by the demon of the radical matriarchy. And then the patriarchy comes after them in the form of a horned man. And when you're just a person, how do you deal with being so pulled from these two different sides, and from the varying social expectations you have placed upon you? So that kind of, I would say, personal frustration and my own, feeling about those topics is sort of what made this a project I think we both really were excited to work on.
Yeah, I think both of us wanted to write something that we would like to see on stage. Mm-hmm. And I think since both of us have experience as teachers and mentors and tutors, we see a lot of teenage girls going through these same struggles, and we want to, put good shows into the world that expand representations of women in a really positive direction.
Yeah.
And I'd say too, something that's interesting about this show, when we were still looking at kind of the changes we were thinking about making for College Workshop, I think that at least for me, there's still a lot of elements of this show that are dealing with ideas that I personally still struggle with and don't really have an answer for. Something that we're still really working on is this ending. And it's this feeling of like, what does it mean to have a satisfying ending for these characters when we're putting it into a world that does not have a satisfying, neat end to these issues? How do we leave them in an empowered place and still show that, like, yes, you can be an empowered individual, but what does that actually mean when you're walking into a culture that's looking to take that power away from you and to reroute that power and to prevent that power from making large systemic changes? So I think something that I really keep coming back with excitement to this project is that, we maybe bit off a little bit more than we could chew in a very positive way, that like years later, we're still trying to work out exactly what this show means. And like, what do we want this show to mean for, the narrative, and like, what do we want it to mean to see it? What do we want you to feel when you're leaving the show?
Yeah. And so much of this show has been developed and negotiated in rehearsals and preparing for development processes. And during development processes, you two are some of the most prolific rewriters that we know. And we've seen this show go from 2 acts to 1 act. We've seen a new character introduced. It's really an incredible amount of work that's gone into finding the show. And as you said, Meghan, continuing to find the show over the course of coming up on 3 years in 2020, which I think has been amazing to watch from an organizational point of view. And Sarah, tell us a little bit about the musical world of the show. Although we did not get to do our April workshop, one thing we are super excited about is that in January of this year, we gathered cast members past and present here in Pittsburgh for a demo recording session. And we'll post a link. Oh, there they are. Hello. And I heard that Marissa Buchheit, one of those cast members, is watching us live. So hi, Marissa. So we did a demo recording session here in Pittsburgh. You Skyped in with us from London and took a listen. Tell us about the musical world of the show and about, I guess, the utility of a demo recording session. Why do we need demos as writers? Yeah, go ahead.
So the musical world of the show is completely different to anything that I've written before. I usually write in a sort of like contemporary classical style that feels very Adam Guettel, little Stephen Sondheim, Janine Tesori, and I love writing in that style. This, just by the nature of the title alone, demanded to be a rock musical. And I think that as time has gone on and as we've developed the show more, it has gotten more gritty and dirty and more rock. A lot of the early songs that I look back on now, they feel really like nice and sweet, and the characters felt much younger in the first version, and now they feel probably 17, 18, a lot grittier. They've got a lot more maturity and life experience. So part of the benefit of demo recordings is that, you know, when you're setting out to write a show, you want to be able to start to spread the word about it and start to share it with potential producers, theaters, people who might be interested in hearing more about it. And I am not an actor. I'm a composer. I'm a music director. Whenever I layer my voice, it's not as exciting and thrilling as getting 4 different, really distinctive and exciting rock vocalists in the room. And we're so lucky that through every stage of development with Pittsburgh CLO, we have had killer vocalists. There's a lot of dense, like, girl harmony in this entire show, and it gets me so excited to hear 4 different voices that all have their own, like, specific grain and timbre to it that come together in these really, like, densely layered chords. It's some exciting. I think it's a really exciting show to hear, because even with 4 girls and then 2 guys who don't as often get to sing, but even with those 4 girls, it feels like a much bigger piece, I think, because the texture is just so big.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, the demos, they sound fantastic, and we'll post a link to them in the comments so you all can listen. I also want to give a shout out to the cast members who recorded those demos with us: Marissa Buchheit, Greta Kleckner, Alex Manalo, Michael Misko, Katie Sachs, as well as our fantastic studio engineer, Jake Hanner. Really a wonderful project, and we'll share them so you all can take a listen at home. So folks, we are moving into our show and tell segment of the show, my not secret favorite segment of the show, in which we take a little peek into each other's worlds and lives. And while we're doing show and tell, those of you watching live, we are going to take questions for Meghan and Sarah after we finish showing and telling. So if you have a question, you can type it straight into the comment section on Facebook, and we'll pull some of those questions after we show and tell. So Sarah, I will turn things over to you first for showing and telling. What are you showing and telling us today?
I am showing a knitting project that I've been working on. I think so often when we work in music and theater, that becomes our hobby, and it becomes our work, and it becomes our lives. And one thing that I've really enjoyed doing over the past few weeks is, like, getting back to crafting. I used to be really into costume design, and I sewed a lot when I was younger, and I actually studied costume design pretty seriously and almost went in that direction in college. So it feels nice to, like, do something with my hands again and to get crafty. So this is my perfectly imperfect blanket that I have finished working on recently. It's got a lot of, like, beginner's errors in it, but I'm quite proud of it.
It's beautiful.
And it felt, yeah, I'm delighted with it. And it's very cozy. And I'm working next on a t-shirt, which is looking a bit better because I've learned how to do it better now.
Oh, wow.
It's great.
How long did it take you to finish your blanket?
Well, the funny thing is, I bought this knitting kit before I left New York. I moved from New York in 2018, September 2018. And I started it then, but then I had a new job, and the knitting got pushed to the side. And then we moved to London, and the knitting got pushed to the side. And so it's been only sort of in breaks and at various little sporadic moments that I'd pick it up until the past month. And in the past month, I sort of charged through and finished probably 2/3 of it in that span.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I'm moving it takes a pandemic to finish your knitting project.
Yeah, and I think it's something that I'm going to keep doing now as well. Like, I've, especially now that I've picked up the techniques a bit more and understand the mechanics of it, like, it's something that I can do while watching a show, and it's very relaxing. It feels a little meditative.
Yeah. Great. Yay. Thanks for showing and telling, Sarah. And Meghan, I hear you also have perhaps a craft project.
I do. I thought we would do crafts and cats, both of us. And I can show you my cat. My cat is here. And there's our backyard, which I think is kind of cool. But there's my little cat.
Aww.
He's kind of in some cords, it looks like. So he's there. But yeah, I've been making, so this is definitely in the category of hobbies that are meditative for me also, but I've been making pop-up cards, which is a little random, but pretty fun. So I brought some cards. So this is my peacock. So because I'm seeing so many peacocks around my little area. And then this one's not my favorite bouquet, but I found it. But this one is like a flower bouquet, so they sort of pop out. And here's a little heart that I made my fiance. It's on his desk. And it's really, my mom for Christmas got me a bunch of cool craft supplies and a book on how to make pop-ups. And she's very, very, very crafty and can make anything. And I classically have not been, but I'm really enjoying it. It's very, you put on some good music in the background and just make a little something.
Those are stunning. I'm so impressed by that, Meghan. That's amazing.
It's really, my goal is to get like really good at it. Like I've definitely I've been bitten by like, because there's so many YouTube, you know, like you can YouTube everything. And my mom sent me, my grandma passed away right before Christmas. But my mom sent a bunch of her like little crafting. I mean, she just has all of these like cutout stamps, and I've decided this is my quarantine project to get very good at making pop-up cards for everybody. So I'll send you a peacock at some point.
Oh my gosh, please.
Some other bird.
That's amazing. Also, I just realized I didn't mute my mic when you were talking, but I hope at least you got to hear my gasps of appreciation for your paper goods.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you both. That concludes our show and tell segment for this week. And we will return next week. And we have had a question come in from our audience. Let's see what Noah has to say. Noah Zagan. Hi, Noah.
Hi,
Noah
Noah
asks, what do you find to be the most difficult step in the writing process? Brainstorming, revising, or even bringing it into the production phase?
I would say for me, it's the blank page. It's the writing the first draft. It's when you need to do the thinking of like what you're doing. Writing a musical, so I mostly, you know, have written straight plays is kind of my largest experience, where I think you're allowed a little bit more of a meandering plot journey to get to where, you know, ultimately you're going. With the musicals, like it's a little bit more surgical, and things have to work a certain way. And like you already have a lot of songs that you like and you want to like make those work. So yeah, it would be the kind of generative, like, okay, something needs to go here. What is it? When it's just me and the laptop, like that's the hard part. When Sarah and I are together, or when we're workshopping it with a cast, like that feels so much easier and collaborative and like exciting. The hardest part is when it's just you and your open final draft file staring back at you with blank white eyes. The rest of it's more fun, I think.
Sarah, what's the toughest part for you?
I would agree. I think it's the getting going. I think once you have an idea, then you kind of ride the wave of that creative journey. But I struggle sometimes to even just sit down and get motivated to write a thing. And then of course, once I'm sitting down, like it just comes out, and you start working and you hit problem spots and you have to pause and step away and come back to it. But sometimes it's just literally sitting down and writing the first phrase. And then you're fine from there. Sometimes it's just a good reminder. If you force yourself to sit down, something will happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have another question from our audience from Michael. Michael asks, Sarah, what down and dirty rock music do you listen to as inspiration for the sound you're searching for? Oh, what a fun question. Thanks, Michael.
That's a really good question. I have to admit, I don't listen to a lot of rock music, but I think that Passing Strange has been a huge influence on me. I love Stu and the Negro Problem. I think I listen to a lot more sort of like musical rock than I do actual rock. And this is going to sound insane, but I love Hanson. And I think that like the tight harmonies in Hanson and their sort of post-2000 grittier rock sound has actually been a huge influence, especially when it comes to like the harmonies in the music as well. So a lot of it does come from more of like a musical theater rock sound, but a more authentic musical theater rock sound from like Passing Strange, Hedwig, those sort of musicals.
Nice. Cool. I want to ask a question that came in last week that we didn't have time to answer, because I think you two are, given some of your teaching backgrounds, are also good folks to answer this question. which is for young writers who are interested in writing a musical and getting it produced. What advice do you have for getting that off the ground, for making connections in the industry? What's the step-by-step guide, if there is any version of one, for how to get a musical off the ground?
I mean, I think as much as anything, write with your friends and get your shows up at school, get them up at college. That is definitely how I got my start writing musicals. And that's how I've mentored a lot of students getting their start in it. I'm being in full-time education and having access to resources, whether it be just like an empty studio that you don't have to pay for, can make all the difference in being able to not only write the show, but then to actually get it up on its feet in a workshop production. And most schools and most universities will be so incredibly excited and so supportive in that environment. If you can find a mentor that can work with you as well. I know there's so many great organizations out there that are now trying to really foster young musical theater writers. Maestra, especially for female identifying composers, is fantastic, and they will set you up with mentorship and support and really sort of foster you on your journey and help you make connections. But I think as much as anything, it's writing for your friends at the start and finding what opportunities you can with those resources.
Yeah, that's great.
And something to kind of piggyback on that a little bit, I have an educator friend, Ellis, who talks a lot about youth capital, which is that, interestingly, when people are young, so if you're in high school, or you're in college, or you're just out of high school, just out of college, there's a tendency to not complete projects because you don't feel like they're as good as the stuff that you love. You're making something, you're like, well, this isn't, this is horrible, I'm not going to finish it. When just by being young, finishing it is how you get good. And there are also so many opportunities available to young people just because something is finished, that it doesn't have to be the most amazing musical. It doesn't have to be the most amazing play. We know that you're young and you're just starting out, but the fact that you have it can open so many doors. So something that I look at in my life, it's God, I had stuff that I worked on, for years that I just didn't finish because I felt like not finishing it perfectly, it just would, no, it's terrible, I'm going to get rid of it. So my big advice is just to write something and complete it, even if it's just completing a draft of it, because there are so many opportunities for you to be nurtured and to be mentored and to grow that I think people just miss out on because they stop one beat too soon. Yeah.
That's great advice. That's great. And Sarah, your blanket with its imperfections shows us, right, the value of done over perfect.
True.
Thank you both for that. And we are at the end of our time here, so we're going to wrap up with our final segment, Thank You 5. So for those of you in the theater world, and thank you as always, Steph Barletta, for that graphic. Those of you in the theater world know that if a stage manager calls 5 minutes to places, you say thank you 5, so they know that you've heard them. And on Tuesdays, we use Thank You 5 as a way to make lists of things we like, grateful for, or doing lately, whatever that may be. Last week, we talked about food. This week, our question for the two of you is, what are your pop culture recommendations? So books, movies, podcasts, TV shows, what have you been enjoying while you're staying at home? Right. Megan?
So mine is a little interdisciplinary. My first thing is it's a streaming YouTube radio channel called Lo-Fi Hip Hop Beats to Relax Study To.
Wow.
And I find it in terms of focus, it is the most, it's changed my life in terms of just stuff that you can put on and kind of get into a good beat and a good personality state. And it has actually been very helpful for me. So that's my first recommendation. 2 is Shonda Rhimes' TV Writing Masterclass, which is a series of videos that are sort of instructional videos. And I found hers to be very engaging, and it feels like being literally just at a really fun class. And you have homework, and then you can watch Grey's Anatomy and Scandal and see what she's doing. And it's very good. The podcast True Crime Obsessed, which is like two big Broadway fans who are kind of like goofy and noisy, but they watch scary true crime documentaries and then they comedically share them with you. So if you're sensitive and don't want to watch it, but you are curious about what's happening in the world of true crime, it's a very good show. An album called Saint Cloud by Waxahachie. Very good. And then I'm rewatching BoJack Horseman for probably the 50th time because it's stunning and brilliant, and we all should be watching it.
That's a great list. Thank you for that. Sarah, what's on your pop culture list right now?
BoJack almost made my list, so I had a feeling. One might be on yours.
You know I've got it covered.
Of course. I'm starting with an album. If you like Anais Mitchell and if you liked Hadestown, her band in a different configuration has a new folk album out called Bonnie Light Horseman. And they performed here in London back in January. I took my students. Absolutely like unbelievable sort of reimaginations of old folk songs. And it just feels like a big hug right now. It's the greatest album. Schitt's Creek, if you haven't been watching it, it is the best sort of long-term character development, and it's the payoff in the last season is just so lovely and so moving and rewarding. That one has bringing me a lot of joy lately. Kim's Convenience, which I don't know if it's available in the US.
I think it is. I just saw an ad for it. Yeah.
This falls into the category of also like warm family types of shows. I think my brain capacity is not long form right now. It's very short and it's very like comedic and light and sort of family driven. And this is about a Korean family owned convenience store in Canada, and it's just a delightful comedy. I would really recommend it. The next one is Slings and Arrows, which has been around for ages. It's a Canadian TV show about a Shakespearean festival, and the festival sort of falls on hard times. A new artistic director takes over, and he ends up being haunted by the former artistic director. Each season takes you through a different Shakespeare play. So if you, like me, are struggling with some of the streaming forms of theater available, I just haven't been able to sit down and watch a streaming show. This is like a way to be nostalgic about theater, and to remember how great live events are through a TV show that was like actually designed to be watched as a TV show rather than something that you're trying to recreate on a screen, which we all miss being in the live room together. And the last recommendation I have is, I will pull it out over here. This is a beautiful, beautiful play. It's one of the last things that I saw before lockdown, all of it by Alistair McDowell. It was at the Royal Court. I saw it twice within the same weekend. But it's a one-woman show, and it starts at her birth and goes all the way through her death, and it's only 45 minutes long. And it is just like rapid fire poetry. Really one of the most gorgeous things I've seen in recent memory. And I just keep thinking about it. It's the type of play that, despite being so short, it sticks to your bones. It really is the sort of play that's really about all of it. It's about everything, but also about being just sort of about the minutia of life, which I think all of us are reflecting a lot on right now.
Yeah. Oh, that's also a fantastic list. Thank you both so much for those recommendations. I have some things to check out now, so I appreciate that. And thank you both so much for joining us today, for taking time out of your afternoon, your evening to join us. We're in 3 different time zones. I can't thank you enough. Thanks for sharing a little bit about your process and your lives. And I can't wait to see you both in the flesh sometime soon.
Yes,
Likewise.
thank you.
Thank
Thanks for having
you.
us.
And of course. Bye, Megan. Bye, Sarah. Good to see you.
Bye.
Bye. And thank you all so much for joining us. We'll be back next Tuesday at 3 for a conversation with Matt Schatz, the writer and composer of our upcoming world premiere, Untitled. This Thursday, remember to tune into Cocktails and Conversations with our producing director, Mark Fleischer. This week, he's going to be chatting with Richard Thomas and Billy Mason. And I'm also going to be stopping by to chat about our New Works program. I also want to mention, last week we teased that Google Doc Musical was going to be going live, and as of today, it is. So check out our Facebook and our website for information on that project. in which you are all invited to be book writers, lyricists, composers. And we're also going to be doing Facebook polls this week to make some important decisions about that show. So keep an eye on Facebook for that info. I also, of course, want to thank our marketing team, Steph, for our beautiful graphics, and Becca and Sid for running this remotely. Hi, Becca. Hi, Sid. Thank you. And thank you all so much for supporting the arts in Pittsburgh and Pittsburgh CLO. We'll see you next time.